Week 1 NFL preview starts September 7th, 7:30. We got a good game between New England and Kansas City. New England's at home. I look for New England to win at home. No Spencer Ware, not a huge deal. For Kansas City, they just fill spots. They had Jamal Charles out all last year. Filled it with Spencer Ware. They'll fill it with Kareem Hunt. They'll fill it with Chadwick West. And I'm sure they'll add somebody. There's guys like Ryan Matthews and D'Angelo Williams that are free agents right now that they could add. I see them as a prime team that is going to add somebody. Now, when I look at Kareem Hunt, he's got good size. I like him as an NFL back. I just don't know, how the Chiefs are. I don't know if he'll just be thrust onto the scene as the starter. But I do think that Kansas City is a worse team than New England. Usually the team that wins the Super Bowl the year before usually comes out pretty strong on that opening night. New England at home, I'll take New England at home. And then so for our 1 o'clock games on September 10th, we've got the Jets and we got the Bills. Hopefully this is a good fantasy game for LaShawn McCoy, Tyrod Taylor, most of the Bills, because the Jets just aren't as good. But I will say I'm really not that high on the Bills this year. I don't really see the Bills doing that great this year. So maybe it'll be a good game. I'd take the Bills to win at home though over the Jets. Atlanta, Chicago. I think Atlanta for sure wins this game. The only kind of tough thing I guess that goes on is they have to go into Chicago for the game. Better offensively, probably better than them defensively. Their defenses are a little closer together, I'd say. But the big question here is, what's going to happen on the offensive end for the Bears? Can they run the ball? Is Glennon going to be the starter? If Glennon is the starter, can he manage the game well? I think those are the bigger questions. There's more questions in the game for Chicago than there is Atlanta. Atlanta should win. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Freeman, all should have good games. Cincinnati, Baltimore, first, this is the first game that of the week that I would say, could go either way. I have Cincinnati winning at home, and I see it being a close game. I see Cincinnati just coming out on top. Two pretty good teams, or all right teams, middle of the road teams. We'll see how they fare this year. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I think Pittsburgh for sure gets the win. Just a better team. Arizona, Detroit. I have Arizona winning the game. But I really wouldn't be surprised if Detroit wins. It's in Detroit. Good receiving core. But I think the biggest difference for Arizona is just David Johnson. Let's see how David Johnson does in this game. Jacksonville, Houston. I like Houston in this game. I think Jacksonville will come out strong. I just don't like Blake Bortles, But it's kind of vice versa. I don't like Tom Savage either for Houston. Both these teams have pretty good defenses. I would put Houston a little bit better defensively. Both all right running backs. I like Houston's running backs better. I like Houston's maybe I don't like Houston's receiving core altogether better than I like Jacksonville's. Jacksonville probably has a better receiving core. But I think Houston will win the game being at home. Tampa Bay, Miami. Tampa Bay, I think will win. Jay Cutler, first regular season game in Miami. And I think Tampa Bay, honestly, will be pretty good this year. So I'll take Tampa Bay. Oakland, Tennessee. I'll take Tennessee this first game. Carr's first game back. Lynch's first game as a Raider on the road. I like Tennessee to win this game. It's going to be a very close game. I think Tennessee will just eke it out. Philadelphia and Washington, real good game here. I'll take Washington to win the game. It's a toss-up, though. Both teams have I'll say the Eagles have made strides this offseason. Washington didn't necessarily make as many strides. They covered their losses pretty well, and they added some pieces on defense. And they're at home, and I like Kirk Cousins over I like Carson Wentz. That's more the reason why I take Washington over Philadelphia. I like their run game. I like the way they run the ball over Philadelphia also. Okay, so for the 3 o'clock games, the afternoon games, On Sunday will be Indianapolis and the Rams. Unknown if Luck will play. I think has a big emphasis on if Luck plays. I think the Colts win. I think if Luck doesn't play, I think it gives the Rams a better chance, but I'll still give it to the Colts. I don't like the Rams at all this year. Their defense is pretty good, but their offense, I think, is very suspect. I'm not high on Todd Gurley either, fantasy-wise. So then so another afternoon game, Seattle and Green Bay. I like Green Bay to win this game at home. This is one of the big games of the week. I think Seattle's defense is not what it was. Like I've been saying for about a year, I think their defense is a shell of what it used to be. Still ranked as one of the top defenses fantasy-wise, and I think they are one of the best defenses fantasy-wise, but I don't think that they're the team that they were 2 years ago. So I'll take Green Bay. I think Aaron Rodgers will handle them. When you talk about Green Bay and Seattle, these two teams I think play week one. Like I know they played week one 2 years ago. These two teams have had a lot of history in the sense of that when we had the fake refs. Golden Tate caught that pass against Green Bay late. I think that was a week one Sunday night or Monday night game, or maybe that was like week 2 or week 3. I don't really know. It was early in the year. I know 2 years ago Seattle won the Super Bowl or they lost the Super Bowl. It was in that era after they beat the Broncos or when they lost to the Patriots on that stupid ass play. I know they played Green Bay and they slaughtered Green Bay. They made Green Bay look like dog shit. And that was a time period where Green Bay was kind of falling down and Seattle was coming up. And now, we've got to a point where Seattle's coming down and Green Bay's kind of got their confidence back up. The thing that's funny about Green Bay has not really changed anything. They continue to not have a running back. They continue to have a all right defense. But they continue to strive ahead, and I think part of that's because Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson's back. I think that helps. He's been back for a full season. Carolina and San Francisco, I'm going to be honest. I think the 49ers will be better than people project them to be this year. I think John Lynch has done a great job with the team. I think Shanahan's going to have a good offensive system. I think they're going to be in more games than you think they will be. They might even, finish better than the Rams, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But I do see them losing to Carolina. I think Cam Newton, if he plays, I think he'll have a big game. I think Cam Newton will have a pretty big year. If he can stay healthy, that's going to be a key for him. His weapons on offense very suspect. His running backs are pretty good, but his wide receivers, he throws to Olsen a lot. Other than that, he has Benjamin, and then we're talking about Curtis Samuel at the slot right now, who's a rookie, and I like that. It shows you the depth of their team. We're talking about Funches, a guy that has been a big guy for them, not necessarily a big guy, but has been a guy that's been on that team the last couple of years. He's like the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, so they're really thin at the wide receiver position, and I think that's going to be something that haunts them throughout the year. And again, 2 years ago, Carolina's backbone was their defense, and they had none of that last year. Kuechly was gone. Their whole secondary was gone. They lost Josh Norman. They were starting a lot of rookies, Bradbury or something like that on defense in Norman's spot, and they got destroyed last year. And that's going to be really the question for Carolina this year is their defense, their secondary. Their front seven's always pretty good, but we'll see how their back four are. And then big game on Sunday night, Giants, Cowboys. They always play week 1, always play on Sunday night. It's always a good game, and guess what always happens? The Cowboys always win the game late, or they lose the game late. I mean, it always comes down to the fourth quarter. This is going to be a good game, and Zeke won't be there, so I see Dallas struggling towards the first of the game. I know people think that this Zeke thing is not that big of a deal and that Cowboys will be fine, but to be honest with you, they do play some pretty good teams at the first of their schedule. We're talking about the Giants at home, then they have to go into Denver, or maybe they have Denver at home, but I know they have to go into Atlanta or Arizona on a Monday night. And their schedule doesn't get any better when they come back with Zeke. They have games against Kansas City, games against Oakland. They'll have games at Washington. They'll have a game at the Giants. They'll have a game at the Eagles, I think, also. They're going to have a lot of tough games in the second half of the season. Cowboys are one of the most the biggest storylines this year with how Dak plays and stuff like that. And I think this week one is going to be a big indicator how the season goes. I know you can't judge everything by 1 week, but the Giants Cowboys series week one I think is going to be huge. If a win, the Cowboys get to stay in, and it helps them, withstand the Zeke issues. But if not, it puts them right back at the back of the pack with Denver, and then I think they play someone pretty good week at Arizona week 3. And I'm not saying, hey, these teams are great, but it's not like you're playing Cleveland, you're not playing the Jets, you're not getting to play like the worst of the worst teams. You're playing these pretty good, mediocre teams that are going to bring you a game if you don't come to play. And on Monday night, we got Adrian Peterson going back to Minnesota, New Orleans, Minnesota. I think, Minnesota's defense will be pretty good, but I do think Drew Brees will handle the defense. I think I think it'll be a good game though, and honestly, I'm going to take Minnesota in the game at home. I don't, when you think about Minnesota on paper, you say, nah, they suck. They're not that good. But at the end of the year, I got them going 10-6, and it's more about their defense. I think their defense is going to play really well. Now, I don't know if their defense will play that well game one against Breeze. It'll be more about the offense game one. But, Sam Bradford, he showed that he's one of the better game managers in the league. A lot of short passes. It reminded me a lot of the Patriots offense last year, the way the Vikings went about it. That was something I was watching very closely because I was intrigued to see if Bradford would struggle, if Bradford would be successful. And my biggest takeaway from it was the fact that Bradford never really was put in a position where he had to chunk a ball deep down the field, or they never put a lot of pressure on Bradford. And I think that was what helped Bradford a lot last year. Chargers and Denver, Broncos and Chargers. I got Denver winning the game. I think Denver is honestly a better team than the Chargers. Denver has a very tough schedule this year. The biggest thing with Denver is throughout the year, what weeks will their offense be in a lull? That was something that happened last year. They played pretty good to start the year, but then their offense went into a lull, and they couldn't win a game. Their defense was right there, but their offense was nowhere to be found. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the Broncos this year, to find the offense in the right games at the right times. And I see them winning this game at home week one. But it's a big game because, if the Chargers can get off to a good start, that can really help the Chargers this year. The Chargers are supposed to be pretty good this year. I've got them going, I think, 8-8, losing this game, going 8-8. So I've got them being pretty good this year. I see this as a pretty big game, Broncos-Chargers week one. Those are some predictions for week one. I already talked about the college football ones and a little bit of fantasy help, not a lot.